Fear Zone Channel, your channel of terror. Good evening everyone, and now, let's go to the story of today, which is, of Mr. Myuu, and this happened to him, near the city of Ribeirão Preto, which is in the state of Sao Paulo, and at that time, which was in the year 1998, Mr. Myuu was 40 years old. And my story, which happened to me, was when a real werewolf brought me a lot of confusion, where several people wanted to shoot this creature. And it all starts like this. A few years ago, I worked as a truck driver on the roads of Brazil, but today I am already retired, and what happened to me at a certain dawn was that I was returning from a trip from a delivery in the state of Minas Gerais, and so I arrived near the city of Ribeirão Preto, where I stopped at a gas station to park my truck there and thus rest a little. This gas station had a kind of big parking lot where many trucks stayed, but the ground was all dirt, and as soon as I arrived at this place, I started to park in a parking spot. Then I rested a little, and everything was normal, until suddenly, when I opened the door of my truck to get off, I saw a guy a little scared, looking at the sides, and very suspicious movements, but I didn't pay much attention to him, and soon, as I was getting out of my truck, this man from the parking lot came running towards me, and he got into the cab of my truck. He looked very scared, and of course, I told this man to get out of my truck, because I was going to throw him out, and this guy told me not to do that, because there were two guys behind him, but I didn't care, and I tried to get this suspect out of my vehicle. However, I saw two men entering the gas station, and these guys were looking under the trucks and around the other vehicles that were parked in the yard. I started to wonder about these two men and got scared, because I didn't know what their intentions were. Since I didn't understand what was going on, I decided to let the guy who entered the cab of my truck hide. Well, I quickly got in my truck, and as soon as I started the vehicle to leave the gas station, one of those two suspicious men called me through the window. They asked me if I saw a man passing by the place, and I said no. These two guys asked me something else, if I hadn't seen some big black furry animal, similar to a dog, passing by. I said I hadn't seen it either. These men told me that it was not good for me to sleep in that place early in the morning, and if I was going to stay there, I shouldn't get out of my truck, and after we talked a bit, these guys still kept looking for something around the trucks, but I noticed that these two men seemed to be pretty scared too. But taking a closer look at those two, I realized that one of them was armed. And the guy who was hiding inside my truck told me to get out of there fast, because those guys could catch us. Well, I thought that was a good idea, and I decided to get out of that parking lot. I started the truck, because I was very afraid and scared because of those two men, so I decided to leave the gas station. As soon as I left the parking lot, I got on the road and started talking to the guy that was with me in my vehicle, that I was going to drop him off in the next town, and I never wanted to see his face again, and this man told me that I didn't need to drive him to the next town. He asked me to drop him off at least 20 kilometers ahead, and as soon as I drove about 3 minutes on the road, out of nowhere, this guy started vomiting inside my cabin, and with that, the guy told me to drop him off. At that point, and then he took off his seatbelt. So I slowed down my transport, and by this time. So I slowed down my truck, and this guy started struggling, and he had an epileptic fit, and you could hear the bones in his body rattling, and he threw himself on top of me, and I lost control of the steering wheel and crashed my truck into an iron fence that divided the two lanes. The fact is, it was good that I was at low speed, but I was angry, because I thought about the damage I would have to repair the dents in my vehicle. The biggest problem is that the guy was still moaning in pain. Suddenly he stopped his convulsions and passed out. With this, I got off the truck to see if he had dented any part of the cab. I looked and saw that it had dented a little bit. Then I started to check the engine. While looking at the damage, I was distracted, but the boy started to roll inside my truck again, and at that moment when I decided to get back into my vehicle, I saw through the window glass of the vehicle a black figure inside the cab, and I got scared. Very calmly, I went to look to see what it was, because it didn't seem to be a person, and as soon as I opened the truck door, I no longer saw that guy in there, nor that black figure, and the other truck door was open, so I thought, maybe he got out, but I thought it was strange that the guy's clothes were lying on the seat of my vehicle. But while I was distracted and trying to understand what happened to that man, at that point, I got scared because a figure of a hairy creature appeared out of nowhere near the door of the vehicle and grabbed my foot, and that tried to pull me out of the cab of the truck, and my reaction was to kick several times the head of that monstrous creature that wanted to attack me, and so, after many blows I gave that monster, he eventually let me go, but that creature was already preparing to attack me again. I was very scared, even because that beast to me was a werewolf, because it had an appearance of man mixed with dog, and its ears were big, and its fur was dark and defective, and that creature was standing on only 2 legs, and what caught my attention most about this creature is that its eyes had a strong glow, and that was something terrifying. But besides all this description of the werewolf, he was still standing in front of me, and what I did was close the door of the vehicle, but the creature wouldn't let me, because he put his arm through the door, so I couldn't close it, and the werewolf was in trouble, because I took advantage and slammed the door several times, closing it on the werewolf's arm, and the beast growled in pain and ran away down the road. At that moment I quickly closed both doors and started the truck, and it was already pulling off the road, so I looked out the window and didn't see the beast anymore. The fact is that I left that place traumatized and thinking about the terror I had experienced with the werewolf. After a few hours on the road, I reached another gas station, but I never left the cabin and continued to think about my story and to suspect that my runaway passenger had turned into this creature. As soon as morning came, I returned to my town, and to this day, I still think about those 2 guys who were in the parking lot, and they were looking for the guy I helped. They knew about the werewolf, and that's why they told me not to get out of the truck, because there was a huge dog around the place. I still wonder about these issues, but one thing is for sure, this creature appeared to me and attacked me, and no joke, this being really exists. Good night. Well guys, thanks for watching my video, and if you like the story, leave your likes, and subscribe to the Fear Zone channel, where you will find the best horror stories. Channel Fear Zone, your channel of terror. This story was translated into English from my channel, Zona do Medo Brasileiro. Now, let's go to today's account, which is from Mr. Cassio, and this happened to him near the city of Batatais, which is in the state of Sao Paulo, and at that time it was in 2003, Mr. Cassio was 41 years old. And everything, it starts like this: I'm the trucker to this day, and I really like my profession, but what happened to me one night, years ago, I was very afraid that I will never forget in my life. For on one of these trips, in which I was doing with my truck, in the late hours of the night, which was to carry a load of vegetables in the city of Limeira, I prowled by a lane, and until I looked through the rear view mirror of my truck and saw one of the ropes of the body loose and untied, I was worried about this problem because the boxes I carried in my transport could fall at any time, and that would be a disaster. With this happening, I stopped my truck in the shoulder of the track, and so I got out of my vehicle, and I stood by the ground next to the track. Over there, you could see well, because of some light pole of this place, but on the other side, there was a closed forest where you could see almost nothing, because by this vegetation it was very dark. Well, I went walking to the truck's body. I picked up the rope that was loose, and sure enough, it had been some transport company employee who tied the wrong ropes to the body of my truck. And what I did is that I started tying the ropes again, and when I was almost finished doing that, I was surprised, because I looked back quickly, and I saw a kind of beast running on 4 legs about 30 meters ahead, and he was coming towards me. I was afraid because it seemed to be a dangerous and huge animal. But as it got closer to me, I noticed something strange, because this beast had a kind of yellow, scary light in its eyes. Not to run any more risk of being attacked by this animal, I climbed fast in the body of my truck. Why would not give time to run to the cabin to protect me from this creature? But as soon as I could get up in the back of the vehicle, and I saw that animal hid under my truck, and this animal kept making a tired noise, and that was pretty scary. I looked down from the body all the time to see if the animal came out of there, but nothing happened, and I still heard its noises under my vehicle. I decided to walk around the back of my truck, but I unintentionally dropped a box of vegetables, and with the noise, I looked again, and that beast put his head out, right there near the front wheel. He almost came out from under the truck. With this I was in shock, because it was a creature unlike anything I've ever seen, and this animal was very much like a monkey, but the ears and snout were the same as a dog, and by my luck this animal was still under my vehicle. However, I realized that by the noise that this animal made, he seemed really tired, and this strange animal kept looking all over the road and worried about something. For sure he was hiding in fear, and that he didn't even see me. And by the way, this animal also didn't have the guts to cross the track, because it seemed that he wanted to pass by the road and was afraid of getting hit, because he was still passing at that time some vehicles by that road at high speed. While this creature was hiding under my truck, I was on top of my vehicle, watching this creature to see what he wanted, because with this animal around, I couldn't get out of the body and go to the cab of the truck. Suddenly, I began to see a figure walking on the edge of the forest, and I was hiding under the canvas of the body, which covered the boxes of vegetables, and that's when an animal came out of that dark thicket, and it was an animal just like the other animal that was hidden under my truck, and this being came running on 4 legs towards my vehicle. He began to attack the other beast, and I didn't believe what I saw, but I felt that I began to get in danger with these 2 creatures. But as I saw the 2 beasts wanting to fight, I noticed one strange thing. The other creature that came out of the bush, his eyes were not yellow, but red, blood-colored. What happened was that soon these 2 large animals began to fight a lot, and were rolling on the ground, and one beast bit the other with great force and violence, and they were attacking each other by the construction site of the track, and until there came a moment in this fight that the 2 creatures left, and that was there that I had a surprise, for the 2 animals stood up, and stood like a man, only on 2 legs, and what I already suspected, it was confirmed that those 2 beasts were werewolves. The creatures were surrounding each other, and they stared at each other, and ready for confrontation again. The red-eyed werewolf seemed to be the bravest. Then the werewolves started fighting again, and I saw their distraction. I took advantage and walked in disguise through the back of the body without making noise, and I went down to the ground and quickly ran, and I got to the cabin of my truck, and I went in there. At that moment I turned on my vehicle, and so I was slowly leaving that side of the road, but I looked out the window at those 2 animals. The werewolf of red eyes was on 4 paws and pulling and dragging with his mouth. The other werewolf of the yellow eyes, who was already fainted and fallen to the ground, and the creature took the other to a forest that had one side of the track, and after that, I no longer saw these two creatures. But for me, enough of the terror that I passed. Soon I got on the track with my truck. I took my way, and after I traveled for a few kilometers, I arrived at a gas station where I parked my vehicle to be able to rest. However, I did not sleep for the rest of this dawn. I stood there in the cab of the truck, just thinking what I had just seen in front of me on that road. And out of fear, I just got out of the truck when it started to dawn the day. When he arrived in the morning, then I went into the gas station cafeteria to eat a bread and butter and have a coffee with milk. While I made the meal of my breakfast, the lookout who worked at this station arrived at the bakery and began to talk that he saw some firefighters in a nearby lane from where he took the bus to come to work, and this man said he saw such a wanderer who had appeared in this region a few weeks ago, and that it was this wanderer that the firefighters were attending, because he seemed already almost dead, said the watchman. And to my surprise, the watchman also said that this wanderer had not been hit by any vehicle on the track, and that this man was attacked by some ferocious animal by dawn on the road, because the marks that remained on this man was bites and scratches of claws, which were very serious injuries. The fact is that I heard this, nor did I want to give my opinion, not to have to get involved in this story, for I was not absolutely sure that this wanderer who appeared dying near the road is who turned the werewolf, or he may have had the misfortune to have found one of these creatures as well. After that, I took my truck and I got on the road and I started driving to deliver the load of vegetables to a nearby town, and when I finished this service, I went back to my town. Well, it's been a few years, and I've started watching a lot of videos related to werewolves on social media, and from the accounts of a lot of people, I've found that these creatures, when they have red eyes, are the alpha werewolves, which are stronger than the yellow-eyed werewolves. And the other version is that werewolves with red eyes are already born with genetics to be werewolves, and werewolves with yellow eyes is that they were normal people who were attacked by a werewolf and ended up being cursed. But other than that, I still work in this trucker profession to this day because I like it very much, but in this whole account, I only know one thing, which I never stop my truck on the side of the road at night, because I know that these werewolves also live on these roads, and I do not want to face these creatures again, because I may end up like that man who was almost torn apart on the road. Good night. Good guys, thanks for watching the video, and if you liked the story, one like, and also subscribe to the channel to receive new videos every week. Until the next.